welcome back to my channel. It is of course Chelsea of She Designs Things, and in today's video I'm going to be talking all about fonts that you can find inside of Google Sites. So of course, let's just go ahead and jump into the video. Alright, so first thing, this video is directed towards all of you designers out there who watch my channel. I see you! Hey, how's it going? How's designing? I'm kidding, but hello and welcome. But also for you who are just interested in trying to figure out how to get your Google site to look better. A lot of people don't realize this, but when it comes to design, your fonts and color selection are a huge part of what makes or breaks your design. Nobody is paying that much attention to your layout. Not yet. They'll first find your site, see what it looks like, say, oh my God, it's beautiful. And then they'll say, this navigation sucks. And so then you'll have to tweak your navigation. But it all starts with first understanding font selection and colors. But this video, again, it's going to be all about those beautiful fonts that Google has. Side note, there are over 3,000 fonts available in Google. Yeah, 3,000. That's a lot. So for me, I kind of cheat when it comes to Google Fonts. I use FontBase. As a designer, it's just easier for me to utilize FontBase to, find fonts. So I have my own fonts located inside of here, but you won't see all of them, but they do have providers. And for my provider right now, I have just Google showing. And it does say there are 3,795 fonts. That's also kind of including some of the other things that are not fonts, like some that are just glyphs. Those are also included in that number. But keep in mind, this is where I find a lot of my fonts, especially when it comes to like new Google fonts that have come in, because this takes everything that's located inside of Google and it's updated quite regularly. So I really love to use a font base. Just as a designer, I can see what a particular font is going to look like with a particular set of words. So that's why you see me right now kind of scrolling, because I have this word in here, pop culture, for design that I am working on. All right, so I know that's a lot and it's something that I have, and not everyone is gonna go out and purchase a font base. There's a lifetime version of font base, or you can pay the subscription, and y'all know I'm anti-subscription. So if it says lifetime on there, I expect it to be the life of the time. Okay, so I will buy a lifetime version of something over a subscription any day. That being said, let's move into these fonts. So there are fonts that are literally only located inside of your Google site. They are not located inside of fonts.google.com, which is the public space that people just can go to and download fonts that have been uploaded there. Now, moving forward, I am actually working on a number of side projects. As you know, I am working on something for you designers out there, and that's for font's sake. But in the meantime, I actually am working on this little side site that I have created that will feature some pretty awesome fonts and font pairings as well. And these are fonts that you can find located inside of Google. So just some really awesome Google fonts. And obviously, yeah, you can see like this one was particularly one of my favorites in here, and just a starting point. Now, when it comes to Google Sites, I recommend creating a file, a folder, something that you can just dump a whole bunch of fonts on. Nothing that is going to be published, because let me tell you, it is going to be a mess trying to deal with it on different sorts of displays. Now, the reason I've created this with all of the same text but different fonts on each line is because I want to have an idea of what I can work with. So as far as like what the style will look like, and what's a really popular font, and how it will look on a mobile device, and how it will look in this setting. So I have to create a site that's going to show me what this is going to look like. And the site might be published but not available to the public, so it's just for me to look at to see if there's going to be some compatibility issues, which sometimes there just is. So yeah, here are some amazing fonts, and I will try to go through them quite quickly because this again is for you designers out there who are struggling with your font selection, and even you small business owners. So what you see on your screen right now is a design that I totally jacked. I totally jacked this style from Cargo. And those of you who are familiar with me know that I absolutely love Cargo sites. They are also built using a Flexbox. So it's a no-brainer that their sites, you know, are easy to reproduce inside of a Google site. They're like their layouts and styles. So whenever I'm trying to find a layout to see if it's going to work in a Google site, I always go to Cargo. That's a tip. All right, so moving forward though, this what you're looking at shows just some of the fonts that you can find inside of Google site. This particular font is amazing. And if you notice, nothing that I'm using, just so you know, is an image. I'm going to highlight it just so you can see they're all images. A lot of times people think that you can only have one style on your Google site and that you can't create something like this. Well, if you just take the time, there is so much patience involved in what I do that I do not rush my designs. Hence why mine look very different than a lot of other Google site designers out there. It's because I take a lot of time to properly source fonts within Google. I should also note that there are fonts that are only, again, available inside of Google sites that are not available in fonts.google.com. And I want to say this too, you are able to copy and paste from a different source into your Google site. Don't paste as a like plain text, but if you copy something and you paste it in your Google site and you don't paste it as a plain text, whatever the font was that you pasted, if it is available inside of Google sites, it is going to show up that way inside of your site. I kid you not. So that is why I have this style here inside of this Google site. Here is the Cargo template, and I'm just going to show, like, this is the actual template. I'm going to highlight the text here just so you can see just this part. And I'm going to right click and I'm just going to click copy. And then I'm going to go back to my Google site, which is right here. I'm going to exit the preview. I'm just going to double click into a space. And now I'm going to right click and I'm going to select paste. As you see, I pasted the information and the font follows suit. Now the font on here says Arial, and that's because that's what's being used in here. If I highlight the font and I select a different font, let's say I want to make it, I'm going to say that it is this font right here, just something that's nice and chunky. You can see that I was able to make that change. Now, one thing I'll say is things that are like circles, numbers, you can find those everywhere. There's even a font inside of Google that does the same style. All right, so for our sample site, we're going to be working with wireframe SDT 1886, which I created inside of Google Sites to pretty much look exactly like a Cargo template that I saw that I absolutely loved. And the reason that these work so well, again, is because Cargo is a Flexbox and Google Sites also is a Flexbox. So when you go to like a mobile view, bam, check me out. So a lovely design, really lovely design. But I digress. Let's start talking about these fonts. All right, so when it comes to selecting your fonts, Google Sites, you know, regardless if you're using a Google site, it really doesn't matter where you're finding your fonts, like say for your logo or something like that. We want to make sure that when you are making font selections, that you're kind of selecting fonts that are complementing one another. A lot of new designers will select fonts of the same font family. This means like selecting a font family that is a serif and using only serifs, or a sans serif and using only sans serifs, or a slab serif, or a script, or a decorative. Just sticking to a particular theme. However, decorative or display fonts are designed to complement any of those other fonts. So they're not to be used throughout an entire design. A great example of this is going to be that font which is called Chicle. It is a nice chunky font. It is a nice chunky display font, but it is not good for a through design. So it should be used for like headers or titles kind of only. So just a quick example here, I am sorting fonts in Google Fonts, and I'm gonna just look for display fonts. Again, display fonts are fonts that we just want to use as titles or headers, not something that we want to use throughout our design. And so when you're locating fonts, or you're not sure if you want to use a font throughout the body of a site, definitely check and see if it's going to be, you know, something that is like a display font, which is also known as a decorative font. Decorative meaning don't use it throughout the whole design. Now, to be fair, I break this rule all the time. I practically live to break this rule. This is the rule breaking channel. We just, you know, we break rules. But I want to say that I try to find fonts that are going to work well with one another. Like, for example, this rubric gemstones font. Sorry for those of you who got fears of holes or whatever it's called. I should have this is a font that definitely will trigger that for individuals. Should you use this holy font throughout your site? I'm gonna say probably not a good idea. Just not, you know, the most friendly of font for people with certain phobias. We have this font, which is Rubric Storm, and this font makes me itchy, so I'm going to not select this font. Now, it's important to also select fonts based on what it is that you're trying to create, what message you're trying to convey. For example, if I want to create a style that is very, again, pop culture, which is what I have going on, this bungee shade is wonderful for that. So is the one right next to it, but it is just in line with what it is that I'm trying to convey. So let's say I want to create something that's like 70s neo-brutalism style. I would select either of these two fonts to go within that particular style because it works. I would not recommend choosing a font that is, you know, too light and airy or too scripty because they just don't align with the goal of the website or the theme or the aesthetic or the style or the branding. So just keeping those things in mind when you're designing will definitely help you design a beautiful site and choose the right fonts for the particular project. All right, so heading on back to 1886, let me show you kind of an example of, you know, a misaligned, or I should say a style that just doesn't work. This particular wireframe is supposed to look like an archive. It has a particular style that is, you know, that has been created for it. So I'm gonna try and just show you what happens if you change the font selection to something that's kind of outside of what it is that you want it to look like. Themes, I'm actually gonna start with the test one. You'll see that I am using very bold, very chunky fonts in this test one, and they just don't align with the aesthetic that we're going for. They actually don't align with one another because they're competing for attention. It is so important to make sure that you're using the proper font for the placement. If you're trying to draw attention to a particular area, but you're using the same font throughout and the same style throughout and the same color, and it's just kind of like gray, beige, gray, beige, gray, beige, you are not going to be drawing any attention to the necessary call to actions on that site. Therefore, redo it and make the right selections. Try to select fonts that are going to stand out against one another. It's also important to select a font that, you know, one is chunkier, and chunkier fonts pair really well with thinner fonts. So I'm just gonna tweak this design just a bit. I'm gonna scroll down just so you can see it. The bottom section here, I'm gonna hit edit and I'm gonna go to fonts, and I'm just going to change the normal font, so the body font inside of Google Site, and I'm gonna select a font that is, say, thinner. I don't want to select something that's all capital, but I do want to select something that's just going to complement the design. So we see here I selected a font that is on the thinner side, and it could work, except it doesn't really work with this style because, well, keeping in line with the theme, they just don't go together. So we want to select something that has a little more oomph to it. Maybe it is a little more creative. So I'm going to change, and I switched it over to Railway. And Railway is tall enough in height to complement the particular font, which is Chicle, because when you're looking at font, you want to visualize what they're going to look like. And there is a great program, like an online font viewer called fontjoy.com, and you can actually visualize like particular fonts. It's really cool. I'll kind of leave a link down below, but I'm not going to show it in this video. But you can see that these complement one another just because of the variations in degrees between their weights, and the fact that I'm using a display font, which is Chicle, and more of a standard style font, more of a sans serif, which means, you know, no groovy, basically. No, what's the real word for it? Basically means without serifs, but in order to know what that means, think Times New Roman. Here you go, a great visualization of a serif font versus sans serif. So sans meaning without, and serif meaning this. So no groovy. That's the way I always say it, no groovy. Now, I do know I said to use fonts that are, you know, similar when I say in font family, but not similar in style. So for example, scripted fonts, yeah, they don't really work well together. You got to use one or the other. But if you try to use two scripted fonts, your site is going to look just chaotic. So for example, I'm going to change this to, I don't know, I'll select one of the closest one. So this is a scripted font now, and now I'm actually going to go and change all the headers to a different one, like, let's see, Alex. And then, well, I got to actually select Alex. So now I have Alex brush, and then I'm actually going to change the subheaders to be something else, which I'm going to make all the subheaders this other brush one, which you see they're very different now. And then the title I'm going to change to be something else as well, which I'm going to just scroll down and see if I can find, or go with homemade apple pie for the title. Let's see, clear formatting. There we go. Wonderful. And everything is competing. You just don't know where to look, and they just don't work together. So don't do this. I know sometimes we want to get font happy and it just doesn't work, but I'm going to show you where it does work. So this is one of my upcoming designs that will be featured in my limited release shop. This is the Groovy Portfolio. The name will probably change, but you've seen it before. What I've done here is selected a number of fonts, and they all work together. I can promise you they are not the same fonts. So this is one font, this is one font, and this is another, and then these darker fonts here are all the same. This is a different font, and so is this towards, you know, the bottom half. The reason it works is because I've selected fonts that complement one another. I kept the palette on the site relatively neutral in this area, which is why when you're looking at it, you're like, why does this work? So it's about creating something that's going to look different, something that's going to look unique, but also remembering that this is a creative agency. So I have this text here, especially in a world full of beige, be the chunky font. Now that actually comes from the original design, which is the site design that you guys see that is live, but there are multiple themes associated with this design, but they will not all be available. And just so we're clear, a theme can really change the feel of your site. So I'm just gonna go in here and I'm gonna change it to what you guys should see, which is this design here, which you see, it's quite chunky. It is that chunky font that you see. And I really like the way that this design looks, especially using the chunkier font. So just keep that in mind. You can create using multiple fonts if you so choose to. It's just a matter of making sure that the fonts all align with one another. And the colors too, because apparently I don't know how to change colors. I gotta change the colors in there. But I digress. It's always a work in progress. All right, so just to finalize everything that I've shown you and everything that I've said, rule number 1, well, not really a rule, but select fonts that are in the same font family, this being serif, sans serif, slab serif, script, and decorative. This is mostly for those of you who are brand new to web design or to designing in general. As you see on this site, I am using a mono font, and I'm also using a serif and sans serif that complement one another. This brings me to rule 2. Select chunky fonts and pair them with thinner fonts. So use the nice, I like to call this the highlighted font. It goes well with this thinner font here, which this is a well-known font, which is called Helvetica. And so everybody loves Helvetica. You do not have to just use Helvetica, because my favorite fonts happen to be all of the mono fonts that Google has, including the IBM Plex Mono and this font here, which this is carrier new, but then I'm also using Space Mono as the body paragraph text here. Third tip is to obviously pre-plan your site. And a fourth tip that I did not say, but I'll say here, is to, well, look at font pairings. There are tons of resources out there that will show you various font pairings using Google sites. Some of them are paid, some of them are free, which brings me to my next bit of information. So I have been working again on For Font's Sake for a very, 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 very long time, and it is almost complete. So if you want to see more images of what it's possibly going to look like, I do have it under my page, which is the work. So if you go under there, you'll actually be finding For Font's Sake there. It is also used as the background image for a lot of my site design. So if you see these photos, these are images that I took just as a way for me to practice what I want the photography to look like for this design. So I have been testing and playing around different paper weights and colors and just trying to figure out what I want it to really look like. So I look forward to having this ready for you and to making various iterations of it, because on one side I do want to have the cards that show you font pairings and colors that you could possibly associate that will look well, because I'm gonna be honest, not every single color, what do you call it? Not every single color palette works well with a particular font, and it because the font might be too light, or it just doesn't work well. I'm not even kidding. Like I've seen it happen. But then I'm also trying to expand For Font's Sake to also include font, logo styles, what a logo will look like. And then on one side of it, not only show what the logo will look like, but also show different options for the style or the layout. So I am just finishing up and wrapping up the selection for the papers, and then I will definitely have something available. However, if you are interested in a preview of For Font's Sake, I will have a free link down below to the ebook which is a very shortened, very shortened PDF version of O for Font's Sake. So this is just to get you started and kind of get you excited about what I am working on, but also to help you select. It will not have the logos. Sorry, that's the longest part. That has taken me the longest. It will literally just feature your font pairings and of course the color selection. Now there are, again, other sources out there that do this as well, and they will charge you. So take this freemium. It's free, but there will be a premium version of it out there and available, and you can get this. Again, a link will be in the description. So all right, I'm so happy to be able to share all of this with all of you. I do hope this video, while long, was helpful and helping you select your fonts. And again, thanks so much for watching, and I'll see ya.